Welcome to the Get Real with King Arthur show. Thank you for listening. Anyway, you never know where I'm going to talk. It's like lightning. You never know what's going to hit. And I want to talk today, I'll entitle my talk, Philosophy and I. I want to start by telling about a nightmare I had. I'm a teacher, and I have a nightmare, a recurring one, that the semester is starting at the university, but I don't remember what courses I'm supposed to teach. In fact, I was never told. So I go to the classroom building where there's a registrar's office to find out what courses I'm supposed to teach. I can't find the registrar's office. People keep telling me where it is. I can't find it. And then I finally found, well, I'm not sure what classes I'm supposed to teach. I go into a classroom and say, is this Victorian literature? And walk around trying to find where my class is. And a nightmare. Now, it's a nightmare. I don't like not knowing where I am or what's going on. And so often I find myself in that position. And, no one's telling me what. I say that because that's the way I feel about the world. I remember one of the first memories of my life, I'm sitting in the front lawn with trees high, it's June, and wondering what in the world. I had no idea where I was, what was going on, why I was there. Anyway, I'm saying that knowledge for me, is important. I want to know. I don't like being in the dark. I hate having to ask questions all the time. Well, how does that connect with philosophy and I? Philosophy really means the love of wisdom, and we dress it all up in a discipline with all kinds of rules and whatnot. And it didn't take in my earlier life. Now, I knew people like the philosopher Immanuel Kant. So I learned that he believes in the categorical imperative. What in heck is the categorical imperative? Sounds like some cat running around. I never understood it. I had 3 philosophy courses. What is the categorical imperative? And so I learned names of philosophers and formal statements about their thinking. But either the teacher was not on the ball or I wasn't on the ball. And I'll tell you one thing about it. I've decided that one thing that happened that turned me off from philosophy is I was very religious and I grew up in an intensely religious atmosphere. And so that's one set of metaphysics and so forth. Then here's formal philosophy, the history of philosophy. And there was no connection made to me. In fact, maybe it's my weak brain. I had to make the connection recently. Wow. Anyway, so I think everyone needs to think. How can you not ask questions about the world and your life in the meeting? I don't know. Now, modern philosophy has given up, as a rule, on foundationalism, that is, metaphysics. They've even given up on certainty of everyday things. But the foundation, what's the nature of the beginning? What's the Big Bang all about? Is there a God? What's he like? They've given up on it. Whoop-de-doo. And so here I had a box with religious metaphysics. And here's over formal philosophy. It didn't ring a bell to me. Now, so much of, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I insist on getting to the ground of the thing and asking questions? Shame on me. So, everyone, I think, if you're authentic, that's quite a word, needs to ask questions to figure out what in this vast maze is the meaning of this thing. Edmund Spencer, in his allegory of the Fairy Queen, has Una and the Red Cross Knight traveling into the world. And what's the world like? A vast forest with many paths leading in various places. I have nothing against learning about your hobby and various things. But what? Why? Come on now. How can you be authentic and not grasp the outside world? Actually, as we shall see later on how I got into philosophy, I got into philosophy through I ended up being an English language and literature teacher, and through my investigations of linguistics and philosophy, I ran smack in, not philosophy, rhetoric, linguistics and rhetoric, especially rhetoric. I ran smack into philosophy. Now, I ran into it some in literature. For example, William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge at the end of the 18th century and beginning of the 19th century, Coleridge writes about their friendship. And one time they were walking in the hills, and people were very suspicious of them as political radicals. And they were talking about Spinoza. And the government, the spy, said they were talking about a certain spy nosy. Well, that was a joke, but that's true. And then Coleridge wrote a poem on monads that Leibniz in the 19th century had, at late 18th century, talked about. So I ran into it in literature. And so that's why philosophy and we had quite a time encountering each other. And you may feel rather alienated from philosophy. So I want to talk about how I stopped my alienation and maybe encourage you. You don't have to know everything. For goodness sakes, I don't. But some basic things, I think. Well, here we are, philosophy and I. And if you really want to know the current book that is really knocking my head off or something, is the book by Professor Cahoon, a lecturer at Holy Cross University, who writes a book called The Modern Intellectual Tradition. It's 37 lectures, unbelievable. Well, maybe you'll read that book. Or maybe you just say, I'm not having anything to do with that nasty thing called philosophy.